Hello, welcome back to another episode of our podcast, Just Speak. I am your host, Claire B, and today I'm chuffed to bits to have Pete, my friend, former colleague, here with us today, and we're going to have a little chat. And I think you're going to get a lot of wisdom and real insight into really good recovery, really interesting story, and just one of the good ones, Pete, right?
Yeah.
So, Pete, I thought it would be nice just if we just touched on a little bit of like how we met, where you were at that point, and sort of the lead up to how you got there. And so we'll just start at the beginning and then we can...
Okay. So, I met Claire. It was in Jericho House. I'd arrived at Jericho House. Broken probably wasn't quite accurate. I was absolutely down in the dumps. I'd nothing left. I'd left the family home about 9 months previous, got asked to leave, and I'd lost my job by then. And I had no contact with the kids for about 6 or 7 months. And that's just a guess. I don't even know if that's accurate because it's so hazy through the drunken sprees, which ended up every day. Every single day I had to drink. I didn't have an option. And I didn't have any money, so I'd get it whatever way I needed to. So I arrived in Jericho House, and I went on a detox, and for whatever reason, I was a bit open-minded, a bit more open-minded to maybe actually getting well this time, and not just trying to pretend to do it for other people. So I was desperate to get into Jericho House. I'm absolutely desperate. And that's the only time I can ever say I was desperate to get anywhere. So when I arrived there, it was slightly daunting, but I was ready for it. For some reason, all my fears had kind of gone about meeting new people, about staying away or staying in somewhere strange. My fears had gone, and I was just ready for the fight. I don't know why, I don't know where it came from. So during that, I think it was the first week, I think we had, and you were doing some rehearsals in Jericho House. And I remember going through, I said, I'll go and I was open-minded right enough, because I went through and sat and listened. Little did I know that Claire at that time actually had an idea that I was going to be part of a show, which I knew nothing about at that time. But I was just sitting there quite enjoying just listening to other people and doing a bit of singing and stuff like that, which later transpired in the show, Drink the Musical, which is an amazing experience. So that was my first connection with Claire. And we just made an instant connection. From that moment on, we didn't have a need to explain each other or anything like that. We just seemed to get on from that very first moment. And it's grown into a beautiful friendship over the years. I think that's probably the starting point of my relationship with Just Be and Claire B.
Yeah, that's great. And then, because also in terms of Just Be, you were an important part of that, or of our early sort of, what do you call it? Like when we formed, like as a charity and all that, you were very much a part of that as well, which is, it's nostalgic, isn't it? It's all.
It is. Yeah. It was really exciting, actually. I remember being part of it. Felt great. Yeah. I'd felt apart from lots of things by that point I got into my life. So to actually be trusted by somebody else to do stuff and commit to it and be ready to commit to it rather than what I did before. It's just like, I don't ever do that. But for some reason, you must have drawn something out of me somewhere, because I was willing to do something that wasn't a payback for me. It was doing it because I wanted to be part of something.
And it's funny as well, because in terms of like your life up to that point, like being part of a musical would have been, I mean, not even in any kind of radar ever. So that's important that you, like, we recognise that that's you really stepping out of your comfort zone, and that's huge. And it's because it can sound a bit wishy-washy, like, can't it, really? I was in rehab and I'm doing this drama group, and then it's like, what? But it's just all the little bits and bobs that goes on, isn't it, in the process of into that, and as you say, being trusted, and like I remember like how like committed you were, and also which brings its own frustrations, because obviously we can very often be around people in that setting, that are not so committed. They want to be, but they're not able to, and then that can bring our own frustrations out. And we worked through a lot of that, didn't we?
Yes.
With and I still to this day always say at any groups we do that, don't take on other people's. It's fine. Trust the process. Like it's fine, because that's tricky.
And I think that's essential. I don't know about you. I never saw you getting agitated. I felt a bit of agitation when people weren't doing things at that point. But I have to remember I was in quite early recovery, and I didn't really know what I was doing at that. Yeah. I was just running on self-will, would be probably the thing, and just doing what I thought was right. But yeah, I think now, going through the recovery process and continuing through it, I've managed to gain patience, and that's been also with you, Claire, as well, and watching you with other groups since then. And that means just let people be themselves, and that's all it is. And don't take their stuff on. Yeah. You don't need to. No. It's not your fault, and it's not their fault. Just let them be where they are at this moment. For me, that was a vital lesson. It's just leave things alone sometimes.
Yeah, that's true. Now, wait, do you know what I want to chat about? Because I think it's really, really important. Just your sort of place in the world and your life, with your family and everything. I don't want to use the word normal, so let's call it mainstream. But you were pretty mainstream. You're from the outside in. Other people will be like, oh, look at that family. They've got everything. So tell us a little bit about, whatever you're comfortable with, but about that whole setup and, yeah.
Yeah, that was, I had many masks on at that time to try and prove to other people I was quite successful, and also to hide the drinking, which was within the last sort of like 2, 3, 4 years, had become a problem. But I was just about keeping on top of it. Now for that I had to put many different guises on to fool other people outside, as I thought I was. Whether I was or not, I don't know. You'd have to ask them. I think to make myself feel better that I'm holding down a job. I've got 2 lovely kids. We've got a big house. We've got 2 cars, and it looks rosy from the outside. But we didn't have a halfpenny in our bank. We had a big house and we had nothing. It was just false. The whole thing was just false. We'd borrowed money up to the hilt. We'd mismanaged money. And on top of that, I was sinking lower and lower and lower. And that would eventually catch up with me. But everybody else was surprised at the demise. And I'm not actually surprised by the demise at all. It was only going to go one way. I did think I was going to pull myself out, but I couldn't this time. I managed it every other time to sweet talk my way out of things, but this time I couldn't. I got asked to leave the family home. Quite rightly, I was a bad influence on the kids. I was unreliable. I was hiding drink. I was doing whatever I could to get alcohol in my system, as I thought I was medicating myself, keeping myself good, and so I wouldn't be so scared, so uptight. If I kept drinking, I would feel good, and I'd be able to speak to people and let them understand how I'm feeling. But it was just a massive mask. It was a huge mask.
And then, so like, even like, so up to that point, like, would you say your sort of upbringing and your family setting back in the day, so was sort of relatively normal, like
Yeah. Yeah, I
just
mean,
a nice family
yeah.
type vibe?
It was. I grew up, and my dad, he worked really hard. He had his own business, and Mum looked after the kids. I was born in '65, so growing up sort of like in the '70s, again, a good family. We lived in a nice house in a nice neighbourhood. There was three of us. We did things together, as in went on holidays together. We go out for Sundays together. And by and large, it was really, really good. It was a great upbringing. I didn't appreciate it until I got sober, how good an upbringing it was, because I didn't realise that people in this world struggled. And that's being honest. I didn't know anything about poverty or people that were down in their luck with drugs and alcohol. I just didn't. We were protected from all that stuff. And I think my mum and dad probably overprotected me at times. They must have known there was something slightly different about me, but they overprotected me, I think. But on the outside, people would just think, what a lovely family. And we are. We were a lovely family. And we still are today. Yeah.
That's nice, and it's nice, and I think it's really nice to just be honest as well, isn't it, and refreshing, because, well, quite often people like to hear a good backstory, don't they? And this is like, we've laughed about it before, because we have a song in one of our musicals called Boom Shaboom. It can happen to anybody, and that's what we're basically saying. It can happen to anybody, so anybody can. Must have hit you like a ton of bricks, though, like a train coming down the track, but you're just like lee 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 lee, and it's just knocked you off your feet, literally. Do you think like your illness, your addiction started, what, 20s, 30s? What?
That's an interesting question. I always felt different growing up. I always felt different. I never felt the same as my siblings, or didn't quite think I kind of married into all that sort of like middle brother thing. I just thought I was a bit different to them. Probably I thought they were a bit different to me initially. But as I went through going through primary school and then into secondary school, I realised I was probably quite introverted, and that showed up in when I was younger. And then when I went to secondary school, this is where it really came to light, because I couldn't concentrate for more than about 10 minutes at a time. So what I did was, to cover that up, I tried to act the goat and try to make people laugh, because I knew I wasn't good at English, maths, the sciences. I knew I wasn't very good at them, or that's what I thought.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Maybe you weren't. It was just your attention span.
Yeah.
Thing.
There's maybe other factors, I don't know. But yeah, and so that was the mask. There's the first real mask. I was trying to. Well, Pete must be a good guy, because he's dead funny and he's chatty with everybody. That was just a mask. Until then, you find alcohol, and that does it for you. So I was quite easy once I found alcohol. So that's where it continued. I went places that had alcohol, because I knew I would be, I'd be sociable. I'd be able to chat to people, be a bit funny. I believe I was born with this. And that's where the bit I'm going, when I was younger, feeling slightly different. My thinking's definitely different. I mean, I go to meetings, and there definitely is a common theme that runs through me and my friends, that our thinking is slightly different than most. And again, I won't use the normal thing, but mainstream, yeah, my thinking's not that great. I normally have to think and think again before I answer, because the first one's not always the right one. And I struggled early doors just by blurting out something, and then thinking, no, that's not what I meant, or what I should have said. So now I have to buy that extra 10 seconds
That's
before
not
answering.
bad though, is it, for everybody to, I think.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. Yeah.
One thing I also just thought was, I think a big thing for you, for lots of people in recovery, but for you especially, because you're very, I would say you're sensitive and you're very kind, and obviously you adore your children. And so to have to face that at that time, and, that's hard, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's quite hard, yeah. I was embarrassed. I was absolutely mortified that my kids had seen me through some of the worst times. Can you imagine your 9-year-old son trying to pull you out of a house next door where you had been doing all sorts of stuff, drinking and taking and drugs, and your 9-year-old son's trying to coax you out of the house. And at the time, I didn't even think about it. No. I probably put up a bit of a struggle, but eventually went through. And that it's like I said, it was one time, it was many times, and that's embarrassing. And I only realised that when I started to get sober, and I realised what I'd put, not just one of them, both of them, and my ex-wife as well. I can't forget that. She tried every way possible to help me. But it wasn't till I found that programme you're talking about in Jericho House that things started to fall into place for me. I'll remind everybody that this is not me doing all the work. This is other people helping me to do the work as well. And it's really important we're in this together, rather than me just fighting on my own and trying to say, oh, I did this, I did that. That's not the case. I couldn't do it myself. I tried numerous times to stop drinking, and I couldn't. It's the only time I've ever succeeded, when I actually gave myself to a programme that had worked for many other people. And it worked because I was prepared to put in some work this time. That's the difference.
I think what you're saying now as well is about embarrassment, because the thing is with shame and guilt and everything, you can actually then make the decision to not face that as well. So then to just keep going down the wrong road or whatever anyway. So that it is, because recovery is not easy, right? Definitely getting into recovery is not easy. But it could appear for someone that's desperately wants to get into recovery, to see other people and think, how did they get, it looks so easy, doesn't it? But it's not, is it? And you've just really got to get your head down. And I always think, and this is about anything, I always think, take everything that's coming at you. Some things will work for you, some things won't. Whatever it is, but you'll find something if you're open to it. But being open to it's hard. And I would have to say, especially even more so for a guy, right? Really? For men to open up or to say, oh, I need help.
Probably the hardest thing to do. And you mentioned it a lot, ego. We've got there's a lot of prideful people in this world, a lot of males that won't allow themselves to get recovery because they don't want to be seen as that person who's asking for help.
One thing we've always shared, Pete, is a really good sense of humour, isn't it? You've got a great sense of humour. And I know you've used that to your advantage, like, as you say, like early doors, but it does get you through as well, doesn't it? And, being able to have a good sense of humour. And
I think it goes hand in hand with a bit of positivity. And remember, that happened right at the very start of the relationship. I saw you as a really happy, cheerful person.
Yeah.
And had a positive effect on other people. And I liked that, and I was drawn to that.
Yeah. It can be annoying though, can't it? Someone's like, yay!
I don't actually feel you were like that, to be honest. I think you knew when to not say anything. Yeah, I think you did. But it's an attractive thing. So the humour comes on the back of positivity, I think. For me, and it definitely does for me, and that makes me feel quite good about myself. If I was to turn that over and start talking about the negative stuffs in my life, then I probably wouldn't be laughing nearly as much. I do tend to look on the brighter side of life, as the song goes.
It's a great song. Yeah, no, it's great. I think it's important just to mention, because I would be curious about this if I was listening to your story for the first time, that you've got 2 great kids and you have a really good relationship now.
Our relationships has taken a number of years to get where we are, and the early days were difficult. I wanted desperately to get well, and I also wanted to build a relationship up. The guy that was helping me, my sponsor, kept me fairly grounded, to be perfectly honest, and there was time for making amends to people, but let's get yourself well first, or in a better position before you start giving everything to your kids. Let them see the real me rather than a fake one, because that's what I've been fake for quite a long time. Let's get well and see if I can actually properly support them and be a dad and do all the things I want to do with them. And I'm so glad I've done all these things with them so far, and there's loads more to go. So I'm so grateful I got the opportunity to do that, because let's be honest, working in this industry, we'll lose people, and we'll lose a lot of people. And that's the sad part, but for some reason I've been given this chance, and I honestly mean to make the most of it.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. It is amazing, Pete. And you know, you are to be celebrated, and you do inspire so many people and help other people on their journey. But you're wise and you're very grounded as well, though. You know, it's not sort of like, oh, we can fix everything. I mean, you know, you're a good inspiration and a good person to follow and look up to. And also, I think is a little bit important part of your story is, so from Jericho, you know, you kind of you had a nice pathway into like your current role. So I don't know if you just want to just give us a quick timeline on that almost.
Yeah,
that's
sure.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was actually, I was in Jericho for 22 months, which is longer than anticipated due to a number of things. But somebody had suggested they were working in the Cairn Centre in Dundee, which has actually been bought over by Hillcrest, who I work for now. And I remember I went along and we did our volunteering there, and I worked in the little cafe, and I was petrified. And I just cleaned cups for about 2 months. That's all I did.
They were really clean, though.
Oh, very clean. They were
Sparkling.
incredibly clean. And I was so lucky, because somebody obviously believed in me within that organisation and offered me some paid work. So before I left Jericho, I'd kind of built a little bit of a life for me, a platform outside of Jericho.
Which was important.
Very important. And I try to say that to people today, that get a life outside of the rooms of AA, because it's important. We can't live inside the rooms, we have to live outside. It's a design for living, and that's what the tools give us in AA, an ability to work outside. But going back to that, and then I had an opportunity to start Recover Tay, the charity, as you know, that kind of took off, and we worked together on a number of projects, and it was great learning curve for me. And then I was offered a position. I work in Angus as a support worker after passing my exams, and I still work up there. I've been working there 4 years, and I absolutely love the job.
So Pete, at the moment we are knee deep, nearly waist deep in Christmas. It's all around us. So I know, I can't imagine how many conversations we've had with other people over the years, but it'd be really important for us to, like, any little Christmas nuggets that you could share with how to get through the festive period, you know, top tips. I know that's really tricky, but, you know, what do we do? How do we navigate our way through? What's your top takeaways?
I just mentioned what I mentioned before. This is the greatest thing. It's rather than doing it yourself, which means sitting in a living room, rocking back and forward. I don't have to do that. I can go and speak to somebody, especially early doors when I still wasn't very well. And I realised now the first 2 years of my recovery, I was not very well. Now, if you'd asked me then, I would have said I was great. And I wasn't great, because I remember what I was like. I was, off my trolley. But the nugget for me is, if you're going out, take somebody with you trust, or somebody in recovery. If you have to go to that particular event, if you're worried about it or concerned about it, don't go. Because if you're going to put yourself in danger, well, we know what happens when you relapse. The chances are it may be your last relapse, and that's what I have to remember. So first of all, keep oneself safe as possible. Take somebody else, speak to other people. Make sure you're not apart from people at this time of year, because even now I can feel a little bit introverted at this time of year, because everybody else is out doing what we do at Christmas. And even now, after coming up for 9 years, I still feel that a little bit of emptiness. So I have to be vigilant as well. So I have to keep mixing with the people and mixing with the recovery people. Let other people do the partying, because they're much better than me than it. So, and the difference is they can go and party and put the drink down. I can't. I have to remember that.
No, that's great advice. And then also, so when you're saying like speak to somebody, what do you mean? Like just pick up the phone, like, or is there? Yeah,
pick up the phone. Even sometimes dropping a message to somebody, a text or something like that. Call somebody that you think might be struggling over this festive period. And it may not be somebody in recovery. It might just somebody that just can't get into recovery. Phone them, see how they are. Before I got into recovery, it was all about me and what I could get, and everybody feels sorry for me. Well, that don't wash anymore. People just don't listen anymore to that nonsense from me, not from anybody else. So the best thing for me is, why don't you drop a message? Why don't you go and pick up the phone to somebody and just say, how are you? Rather than looking for people phoning up me and saying, are you okay? It's my job now to try and pass some goodwill on for a change, rather than looking for it from other people to make me my ego, inflate my ego.
Okay. Can I just ask you, regarding meetings, they carry on all the way through the festive period?
Yes,
yeah,
they do.
Even more so?
Yep. Yeah, they do, yeah.
Great, okay.
Yeah, the rooms are open.
That's what you refer them to as the rooms?
The rooms, yeah. The rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, they're open right through. A really important time of year. If you're feeling anything at all vulnerable, look on the internet and find where your local meeting is or where the next meeting is, and get along. Phone somebody. When's the next meeting? Can you pick me up? There'll be a queue of people who want to help you and take you to meetings. And I did that for a lot of the time in the first probably 4 or 5 years. That's what I did. I surrounded Christmas Day especially around one meeting. And that was important to me, to go to that meeting, because it gave me a centre point, and it stopped me feeling that uncomfortable feeling, which is a hollowness inside me that I can't describe how it feels, an empty feeling. It's just a horrible, horrible feeling, and it's difficult to describe how awful it feels. But by doing that, if I'm going to share at a meeting or going to see somebody or meet somebody, take somebody, then, it's not about me anymore.
Yeah, no, that's great. I guess that, the message then is just reach out, connect to somebody or something, however that works for you. So, on that note, Pete, is that the end? We're finished out with...
Oh, I think I've said more than enough.
You've said enough.
Yeah, I think so as well. Thanks very much for your time, Claire.
Thank you so much. So that is my good friend, and now yours. Haha. Pete. So thank you so much to our sponsors today for allowing us to bring this podcast to you. Our sponsors, the NHS CIF Fund and the SCVO Digital Pioneers Mental Health Fund. It's great. we're loving this. We're loving the people that we're getting to bring you. It's really exciting. And yeah, as Pete says, keep connecting.
Thank you.